Upon the hill, among the pines, there's a school that we love and cherish long. We'll do what's right and work with zest and praise her with a cheerful song. And how we love thee, OTS. How we love thee, OTS. We all know that you're the best. You're the best, OTS. Our training school.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, that was incredible. Thank you. Our training school, yes. We were proud of that school.
So, Jane, we're here at your home today. We want to talk about the Orange Graded School Marker Project. It's been some 23 months since we started this phase of the project. But if we want to go back a little bit, right in front of you, there's a photo of two people. The one on the right is a lady by the name of Miss Judy Carter. Tell me about this lady. What do you know about this lady?
Well, I just knew what she was in Orange, Virginia, and I knew she had something to do with the school board. So we was at a dance recital, and I caught her when she was coming out, and I said, "I'm gonna ask this lady, why isn't there a marker for the Orange Graded School, And she looked at me, and she knew me through Waterdam. And she said, "Well, I never given it a thought, And I said, "You think that we could get one?" And I said, "Let her know that we were there." And she said, "Well, I'll look into it." And I said no more to her. And eventually she took and called me and let me know that she didn't forget what I had asked her. And she said, "First, Jane, we got to find out who the land belongs to." And she did that and found out that it was the school board. We went on from there, and she got back to me again. So I gave her information because I had called a historical place in Richmond, to see if we could get a marker there. And they answered back. They were real nice. Everybody was real nice in this project. And that went forward with that. We worked with it. We got information as much as we could. And Rebecca Coleman first started trying to find information on the school. And she came to a dead end, but she gave us information that she had gathered up, and the same thing that Miss Carter had. So we went on from there. And there we got a marker going, you know.
Now, this marker is from the Department of Historical Resources, which is the headquarters is in
In
Richmond.
Richmond.
And it talks about recognition of historic sites. And so the Orange Graded School, to my understanding, your mother-in-law, Miss Ware, she corrected us and she reminded us that the original name for the facility was the Orange Training School,
Training school.
and that it was located on East Main Street, which is, West Main Street,
Main Street.
which is the present-day location of Pretty's funeral home. And I've heard this story many times. Do you know anything about that version of the Orange Training School?
No, no more than what I heard, down through the line that I think my grandmother, Willard Steed, she went there because we was fascinated that that was a school at a funeral home, and the people that work there now or in before that had died, they recognized it, and they had some people come up to see the wall that was still there at the place, because some was skeptical saying that it was at Purdy, that building, that it was another building, but it was at Purdy where that site is now. And no more than the training part, we still had training in the, after it was named Orange Graded School, we still did, like training craft stuff and stuff like that, in the school.
Well, that's interesting. And we did find the deed where Mr. Pretty purchased the land from the Orange County School
All
Board in
right.
1925. And so that did confirm the oral tradition. And believe it or not, a lot of times when people tell you something, there's a little bit of truth in everything.
Yeah.
And so I feel good about that historical part
Yeah.
of it. And if we don't find everything, there's still some breadcrumbs out there that we just haven't discovered yet. And so we'll keep looking. But today we want to talk about the Orange, we'll call it the Orange Graded School. And so the Orange Graded School Marker Project, and we started talking about the 2010, 2012, 2014 time period and your relationship with Miss Judy Carter. And we thought it was important to bring her up first because she's an advocate for the 21st century. For the 21st century, much like Mr. East was in the early part of the 20th century. And so these two people never met each other, far removed, but here they stand 100 years apart, fighting for the same thing, a quality education for the African American children of Orange. And so that's why we thought that was important to bring her up first.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the other person that we're talking about is Mr. Willie East, Willie Roger East. What do you know about this man?
The only thing I know, he's my husband's grandfather. And I think he ventured out of Gordonsville, Virginia. Well, he had lived in several places in Orange, but I just heard Orange, Virginia, and Rapidan, Virginia. And that he was a hard-working man, farmer, and loved his children, did for them the best way he could, And, of course, he fought to get this Orange Graded School. And I was fascinated about that, because nothing was said too much about it. And I think something should have been said about how he, did that, and how he got to school in the first place. Well, anyway, he seemed like he was a nice man according to the family and everything like that. And he worked hard trying to get to school. And I heard that he had went up to the school board several times by himself. And I think eventually some people went along with him to help, support him, in that. Anyway, it seemed like they got it, and there it was, Orange Graded School, Orange Training School.
And again, what starts out being a need or a requirement for the children, you still have to make a consensus with the adults in the community to make this happen. So somewhere along the way between the African American population, the school board, and the board of supervisors, they found a way to get this school built. And so now we find ourselves trying to hold on to the legacy of what used to be there. And so let's move forward a little bit in time and let's talk about now. So it's 2022, and we find ourselves at a point where we think that we're going to bring back to the public the foundation of what remains from the school, and we're going to add some supplemental artwork. And we've found a person to help us with this effort. His name is Thomas Marsh. He's a well-renowned artist and sculptor, and he's decided to use his skill set to help us with this project. And so, what was your first impression of Thomas Marsh?
I can't remember when I first met him. Where we were? Up at the school site?
At the site.
At the site, yeah. Very, very nice man. Very religious-like man, And he was willing to do whatever he could to help this project because he thought it was real interesting, to have this. And he was putting all he could in it and everything. So I found him to be a very nice, caring person.
And he seems to have a genuine interest in the project. I believe the way he described it is that he had a fondness for underprivileged people and people who were in need, and that's part of his Christian nature. And so when he saw that the legacy of these minority children's school was what's at stake, he quickly volunteered to help us with this project. And so now what we started out just trying to put a plant there to memorialize these two people, now we have this famous artist who's willing to take his time to help us with this supplemental artwork. And so I just wanted to remind the people that a lot of these things are done with in-kind services. We spent little to no money to get this project off the ground. And so Mr. Marsh was our first primary stakeholder. That's why we bring him up.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's donated a lot of his time and his talent, to help this project move forward. And so the second person we'll talk about as our primary stakeholder is a lady by the name of Sherry Page. Sherry is the current chairperson of the Orange County School Board, and she's been a partner with us from the beginning. Say about Miss Page.
Well, Miss Page, I met her when we did historical marker. She was on the school board then, and she was very supported for it. She came to the program and everything. And when I went to inquire about this marker, at first it was just going to be a little plaque or something with a little flower garden, to do that. And they approved whatever that was. And Sherry eventually, when we got further down to have this marker, she was very supportive with that. And so seeing her at the school board when I went, she was so friendly and she cared for me. And I seen her there, and it helped seeing her there, and she was very supportive in doing that. But she had good ideas too, in our meetings that we had, and carrying us on.
Okay, and so what we needed also is that we needed a nonprofit organization to serve as our sponsor. And we wanted to find a group that was aligned with us and its charter. By that meaning the African American community and those things that are of interest to us, much like preserving the legacy of those that attended the Orange Graded School. So the Orange County African American Historical Society, this is the group that we chose to help us by serving as the sponsor for the project. And there was a fellow by the name of Reverend Darrell Crump. He's the president of the association at the time we started the project. What can you tell us about Mr. Crump and the Orange County African American Historical Society?
As the days go by, I found, met him through church, and found him to be a very, very caring person and very supportive in things that he thought was nice to have and everything. So ain't too much more you can say that he's just a fine, nice person, decent person. And he's willing to help in any way in this project or whatever, in the community or whatever. And he's always in the community and in various churches doing different things for people and everything.
Okay. And we raised those three groups because those end up being, along with yourself and me as the facilitator, we are the primary stakeholders for the project. And the last and most important primary stakeholder would be the community itself. Our focus is on the preservation of an African American school, but the project is for the large community, for everyone in the community, because it's an educational project.
Right.
And I think that supersedes any kind of cultural or color lines or anything of that nature. It's always about education, and it's always about the children. And so that's what attracts us to the project. Okay, Ms. Ware. So we got the stakeholders out the way, and we've had some talk about why we do this. But if you had to think about the project itself and this phase of the project and your role in it, why do you think it's important to preserve this school site?
Oh boy, it's very important. I mean, look at how many that it has served. It's how many people had been there, generations and generations. And we don't want to, lose our history. And I think that school being there and the only black school at the time, served so many reasons that we should try to say something about them, not to forget it, and that and we got to know that the people that had been there, they had come out to be, what should I say at this time, doctors, lawyers, teachers, policemen, I mean, any kind of profession that's out there. The people had to become that. The students that had been there. Alumni, rather. Yeah, had been there. And we are proud of that. And by being there, we sure want to reserve our legacy there,
And they end up being great citizens.
They've been great citizens. No trouble that I know of that could count for something to go down in history,
Okay. Well, now you talk about this school because this is also your elementary school. And so, what time period did you go to school there?
What's my age?
Yeah. It's hard to remember
Well,
years.
during the 50s.
Okay. In the 50s. Okay. And so, in your earliest memories of the school, um, what would be the earliest things you can remember about going to school? Is it the trip going to school, the people that you
Well,
met?
I think that we should start with going to school.
Okay, let's talk about a
That's
typical
from the
day.
beginning of the day,
Mm-hmm.
getting ready, your mother going to work,
Okay.
and we have to be leaving the house at a certain time. And we had to walk to school, and not just us, but most of the people there in Orange walked to school. We walked in all kinds of weather.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't stop for snow days, which was good for us because all where we went, we just sleigh ride
Yeah.
down the hill that the school was up on. But a typical day at Orange Graded School, like I said, we start with coming to school, walking to school. We will pick up other children along the way, and everybody will wait for one to come. And we would just have a big line,
Mm-hmm.
really, going to school. And we played on the way. Some of us did. And once we got to school, we was glad. Some of us had breakfast there for us. The ones that, couldn't afford, the parents had to leave early. And we did our work. There were firm, strict teachers back then. They didn't play around with you,
Mm-hmm.
but yet they was caring and loving. But they want you to get their lessons, and they was really on you getting your, your education. And they went far as buying literature for us to have that they didn't have given us in the school board.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one lady, Miss Beatrice Sneed, she was my aunt by marriage. I remember her and Miss Towns. They used to buy our literature on Black history,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't have too much. We had some in the books more than we have now. But yeah, there were more Black history in the books than they have now.
Mm.
But it wasn't enough,
That's interesting.
that because they were sent off of literature for us to go by. And of course, we had the current event that used to be coming once a month or once a week or something like that. But Black History time, the teachers were sent off for literature on Black history.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we found out all about Booker T. Washington, all the different people back there in those days. And they'll send pictures of the famous people that's, had done something, you know, back there. But like I said, of course, we got our lessons. But I'm sure that all the children would love the recess.
Mm.
We had 3 times to have break. We had lunch break. We had 10 o'clock recess, lunch, and a 2 o'clock recess. And you played, and you had a time where they would have games where you go and visit other schools. We loved that. It was volleyball and baseball. We didn't have softball. You had baseball and baseball or softball, but I think it was baseball and especially volleyball.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Mr. Holmes when he came there, Mr. W.T. Holmes. We had a volleyball team, and we would visit Lyford Elementary School in Unionville, and we loved that. And then we had trips to go to Williamsburg, and things. You had to raise your money to do that. And I think they might have gave us a little bit of money for the bus trip, but you had to raise your own money. We sold candy
Mm-hmm.
most of the time. And of course, me being me, when you sold candy and one person would buy the candy and say, keep the change, well, I'll buy me a ball with the change. And sometimes enough a whole box of candy wasn't nothing but $1.20 at the time. And you could easily buy a whole box when somebody say, keep the change.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's to make a little humor in that. We went to Jamestown and Williamsburg. And I think it'd be another trip, maybe to a play or something like that. And it was a good time. Then we had a time out, and I don't want to forget this because we had Bible class there at school. The lady would come in once a month, and they would teach us, and we had to learn verses, Bible verses, and each day of school we'll say the Bible verses, so that when the lady get there, whoever said the most Bible verse would get a New Testament. Well, I think it was a card first. You know, if you said 4 or 5, you get a little card with Bible verse on it, and then it moved up to a New Testament if you said more than old 20 verses if you get that far. But it was up to a Bible. If you said enough Bible verses, you get a Bible. I didn't get that far. Well, anyway, it was a friend of mine named Gloria Johnson. She's Gloria Gimble now. And I asked her, because she was so smart, I asked her, I said, Gloria, have you read the Bible through? And she was stunned. She said, yeah, I think so. I knew she did. But anyway, I said, wow, you know. So I used to go home and try to read more. She, encouraged me, and things like that. So we used to love the Bible class coming because they used to have a board where they used to have the pictures of the of the people they were talking about, and they would stick them on this board. I thought it was fascinating that these things can stay on that board without falling off, and it looks so real up there. I'll be looking like that instead of paying attention to the lady. And she'll put it up there talking about Moses or somebody in the picture of Moses or whoever, and the whale and then this and that. And I said, it just fascinating to do that. And everybody loved for the Bible class to come, and they'll help one another if they didn't get their Bible verses straight, and things like that. And I love the part in the school where we would do craft, and we would learn how to sew and learn how to make stuffed animals and things like that. So that was good. Children like that. I mean, it was a training school at first anyway, but they loved that part too. And they used to make little horses, stuffed horses and things like that. And whatever you make, you carry home at the end of the year, all your things. And the Lord, the most part, the children like was the plays. Miss Sneed and Miss Townsend, they used to put on plays. But Miss Sneed was the very one that really did it. And she would order plays. And one play was the
Goldilocks and the Three
Goldilocks.
Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my sister was one that, anyway, she had long hair.
Marilyn.
Joyce.
Joyce.
She had real long hair. And we were called, and this lady, our extended family, Miss Washington, Miss Virginia Washington, was Sherman at the time, and she used to fix our hair. And she used to fix these big round curls on Joy's hair. And when she played in the Three Little Bears, she had these curls. We called them Goldilocks. And it was several plays, big time plays that the children did. And one of them was, I don't know which play it was, but it had somebody, three cocker spaniels or something like sitting up in a tree. And whatever it was, I couldn't remember that thing, saved my life. And I said, three cocker spaniels, blah, blah, blah. And like everybody there, I was so ashamed and everything, I couldn't get mine straight. And Lord, they teased me for years about that, and everything like that. And they would say, three cocker spaniels under the tree, just to point at me. And I couldn't get that thing straight, save me. But anyway, we tried to do. We had stage. We built a stage, the platform, and everything. And then there was a time we have a movie, and so we had good times at Orange Grade School. Mr. Holmes was the one that brought in a whole lot of that, the sports and the theaters and things. But Miss Deed was the one that did the plays mostly. And we had one movie came up with the Globetrotters. We thought we was something to see those, the Globetrotters and everything like that. And when we go outside and play, we try to imitate them, like that. And then Mr. Holmes was instrumental in getting us a string set. And so we had playground stuff and everything like that. So of course we had a well there. You had to pump the water and everything like that. And you had to take turns doing that from your class to go out and pump the water into buckets and bring back into school for you drink water. So we had a good time at the school, But nothing beat the time that you had to get your academic studies. They made sure you did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had a big pot stove. We had to go and feed it, get wood and just coal and stuff like that to feed it.
Mm-hmm. What my next question was going to be about is about three people in particular. Uh, and let's just start here where we are. Let's start with W.T. Holmes. Uh, W.T. Holmes is pretty famous in this area as an educator. He was here during the Orange Graded School time, and he made the transition into integrated school system, and he retired from here. And so, talk about W.T. Holmes.
All I know about it well, he was very close, not close, well, I mean, but friend with my mother because he knew mother, had the children raised them by herself, and the boys probably wasn't doing what all they had to do, so he had to go and visit her a little often. And they came close, and we knew him by coming to the house a little often than any other teacher would,
Mm-hmm.
and everything like that. He's always polite and always, try to help us and everything like that. Some say he was a hard teacher, or something like that, but he he was a fair teacher. If you want to learn, you could learn anyway on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I ain't too much I can say other than he was just a nice person, a nice teacher, a nice man, and he worked in church.
And the reason I asked about Mr. Holmes is because, if I understand the record correctly, he was the last principal of the Orange Graded
Hmm.
School before they transferred to
Hmm.
Prospect Heights School.
Hmm.
And so, and that's why we want to bring his name up because that's an important transition. The other person I want to talk about a little bit is Gussie Taylor. Now, Miss Gussie Taylor is reported to have been hired as a school teacher for the Orange Graded School, and then at some point she became the supervisor for that particular school and for the colored school system throughout the county as time went on until her retirement. So, what can you tell us about Miss Gussie Taylor?
No one, she was a hard worker in her time because she had very much on her, all the calendars and had to carry children back and forth to doctor's appointments. And that's where I met most of it because she had carried me back and forth to the doctor in Gordonsville, Virginia,
Mm-hmm.
where they had the Gordonsville Hospital because I had trouble with my throat all the time. And that's how I come close to her. And she was a friend of the family. She too helped mother, and of course she was always getting mother to do things with it, and
For the
people,
school
and
system.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that too. But I thought she was a nice lady, a hard-working lady, and trying to get the best out of people, and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
she visited our homes often. They became friends because they had some kind of club going on too.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. She was a community worker. She was a church person, and everything like that. She was a nice lady.
Okay,
Mm.
and then in addition to those two people, there's a lady, legendary school teacher by the name of Beatrice Johnson Sneed.
Hmm.
What can you say about Miss Sneed?
Well, I said a little about her, but they said she was firm and stern. But I was under her, and I didn't find her to be so hard like everybody said she was, unless she done got tired by the time she got to us, my age.
Yeah.
But you got your work under her.
Mm-hmm.
She had the most beautiful handwriting, better than the alphabets that they put up on the board. And everybody said I try to imitate her, but you in her class, you gonna get something out of that,
Mm-hmm.
her handwriting, because she believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
She said if they can't understand what you're saying, how they know what you're saying? You know, in your handwriting, if you're putting something down on the paper. But she was a real nice person. She was a good relative and everything like that. And she will see to it that you got your lessons and things too. She'll go the extra mile.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of them that would make sure that you had what you can at that time what you can get to further your education, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she had helped several people to went on with their education and college and stuff like that.
Okay. And I wanted to get those things on the record because these people are important as time goes on. We find them to be school teachers and educators and administrators, but they also become friends of the community.
You see, Miss Need was worked in the church,
Mm-hmm.
in the church, now it's the Baptist church, and she was secretary of this, president of that, and she was sung in a choir, you know. So she was very active in whole NAACP, all those things, you know. So we had most teachers coming out. It was few local teachers, Miss Elsie Johnson, Miss Beatrice Wood, and all those, but most of the teachers came out of town,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from down south, you
Mm-hmm.
know, thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
Miss Steve came from North Carolina.
Well, it is interesting you say that because you and I had talked about the teachers list that we had started to put together for the project, and there are some names that just end up staying on that list from generation after generation. And one that stands out more is a lady by the name of Miss Grace Ward. I never met this lady, but not only does it appear that she was a school teacher, but she had uh, embedded herself into the Orange community and had her family here and raised her family here and participated in local church activities. And so she ends up being a part of the fabric of the community. What do you remember about this lady?
I remember her a little bit, not much, but I know she was a short lady, a
Mm-hmm.
firm and stern lady, you know, that want you to get your, you know,
Yeah.
lessons, you know, and I don't know really too much to say about her, no more than everybody else was saying about Miss Ward
Mm-hmm.
and everything like that. But I know she was a school teacher and firm and stern, like, you know, she didn't believe in no whatever it is that you're not getting your work right or doing right, you know.
Mm-hmm.
She was like a mother to every child and that kind of person, you
Okay.
know.
Okay. And then that's what we were trying to get at is that, in addition to being a school teacher, she's somebody's parent
Oh
and a
yeah,
neighbor and a friend. And she was a matriarch
yeah.
of the
She worked
community as
in the
well.
community too.
Okay. All right, Miss Ware. And so we talked about these teachers and the administrators, but what can you say about how did they maintain the school? Who kept the school building? Was there a custodian or?
I imagine it was, but most of the students did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the we had to do the windows. We had to make sure that the wood was in the school and the stove was running right, the coal that you had to get and everything. But I imagine if anything needed knocking and something like that, either some parent, you know, or but I never heard of anybody being hired to do anything. You know, they just kept it up
Mm-hmm.
the best way they can. So glad to get to school,
Yeah, yeah,
you
I
know,
understand. Okay.
and things like that. But I imagine it was. I think we had to do the grass and stuff. Wasn't
Mm-hmm.
that much grass around
Mm-hmm.
to want you to just clear ground, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
So you can run.
Well, it was grass in patches or something like that too, but it wasn't nothing harder to upkeep it, you know, and stuff like that.
Last summer, we had a lot of activity on that site. We have cleared about maybe 20, 22 to 23 large trees, a bunch of smaller trees and the shrubbery surrounding the foundation of the site. We've ground the stumps. We spread mulch around and sprayed weed killer to get rid of all of the underbrush. It is an open site as we speak. So, how do you feel about the way things look today versus the way they looked in 2014 when the trees were still there?
Oh, big improvement, I tell you that, a
Mm-hmm.
large improvement. I wish we were able to keep it up like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope anybody hear me. They know they depend on them to keep it up. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a great improvement.
Okay, and we had the privilege of having your husband, Mr. Walter Ware, come to the site on the day that we cut the last tree down, and we wanted someone who had attended the school and to record their first impressions, and he was excited because the way he talked about it, he attended that school started in 1947, and so that was some time ago. And he had said it's been some time since he had seen the school, and in this form
Yeah.
anyway. Even though there's no building, just the
I know,
foundation alone
foundation.
reminded him of what a day was like going to that school. And so that's why we asked all the questions about a typical day. And as we come to the end of this interview, we want to talk about this phase of the project. Now, we've cleared all the trees, we've got everything back down to the foundation, we have the supplemental artwork in place. When we finish this phase of the project, we want to present it back to the community as a opportunity for what's next. And so, what does the end look like for you? What would the long-term vision look like for you at that site?
Well, since we got this Bollinger up there, they give you, like you want to stretch it a little further, I could see a little park like for people to come up and sit down and visit the old place, especially the alumni. And for the town, our Orange County, to come up, maybe they can rebuild the building again. Because I heard that they had the foundation, the blueprint like to do it. And we can make that as a senior site or some kind of
Community building?
community building like what they got down called?
A museum?
The museum like of the teachers and things that have been there.
That's interesting.
And that's a go through thing. Walk through and see the museum, see the seniors come up and maybe have crafts, or something like that. Or, there's a whole
Looks
lot
like-
of little things that you could do with that building.
Looks like the bottom line is that you don't want to let the legacy go. You want to
No.
preserve the legacy of what happened at
Please,
this
yeah.
institution.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like a good idea to me, Miss Ware. And okay, is there anything else you want to say about the Orange Graded School Marker Project?
I think it went along very well. The people that donated towards this marker, I appreciated everything that they had done, and to understand the vision of it, because they didn't have to do it, and that I don't know that, if they just take it serious enough, that we could accomplish that other building and things like that, and just go along with it, because this would be a nice project for somebody to carry through, and just have a little park up there, a little walk-in thing, and sit down and just let them reminisce, of all the good days and things that they had there, and stuff like that, to tell their children,
Okay.
because I mean, Orange Graded School has been a lot to many people, to many children, to us, that
Okay.
had been there.
Well, I appreciate that, and because it does have endless possibilities. It's something that they already own, and so they don't have to go purchase anything
That's
new.
right.
Well, Miss Ware, the last thing I want to ask you about is advocacy. The idea that someone would try to stand up for a person or an institution or an idea that can't defend themselves or won't defend themselves. And so it seems to me that Miss Carter and Mr. East fall into this realm. They see something that's important and they go stand up for it. And in my lifetime, people like you fall into that category as well. Even though there ends up being a lot of small things that you do all the time, but they end up being about advocacy, always looking out for someone else. How does that go for you? What motivates you to do this? Is that part of your upbringing, or?
I don't know, Poopy. Just me, I guess, and God. Because He gave me these visions, and I just think people supposed to jump on it because He'll give it to me so fast and it's complete. But He be doing it that I think everybody supposed to do what
See it.
I
They
said,
see what you
know?
see.
And but it's not like that, Of course, I just thank God for this facilitator here, Alan, that could see my vision too and going along with it, and done a great job, wonderful job, and doing, and other people could see too, and other people may have vision of things too, but they just let it stop right there. But I believe that God give you things. He wouldn't have done it if he didn't think that it couldn't happen, you know. And that and not just this, but a whole lot of things in the program that I have. He showed me how I could get it done and everything like that. And all I need is somebody to carry through. You know, you can have it, but if you're not putting it to action,
Some facilitator.
you know, it's nothing. And if
Okay.
you're sitting still on it, there's no use. You know, you got to. God give you things, you know,
Okay.
and I just own it all to Him. You know, and my big mouth.
Well,
You know, you got to open up your mouth. You know, if you don't, you know,
they won't hear you.
they don't want
Yeah.
to hear you.
Okay. And I think that is well said, because that's what advocacy is all about. Just instinctively, just reaching out to help someone who needs help. And so let's leave it at that.
Okay.